everyone, and welcome to another spoiler review episode here from the
Geek
Buddies.
Hey! Well, if you read the title of this video, if you saw the thumbnail, you know we are breaking down the Falcon and Winter Soldier Episode 1 spoiler review. This is going to be one of your final warning spoiler review. We're going to get into Easter eggs analysis. Those of you who went on the trip with us with WandaVision will strap in. We're on a 6-week trip through the Falcon and Winter Soldier. I am one of your hosts. I am the Outlaw John Rocha, joined as always by these two gentlemen. Mikey?
I am Michael Vogel, writer and producer of animated TV shows and movies.
And this is Shannon McClung. I'm an animation writer and a television actor where you may have seen me on Brooklyn Nine-Nine, Modern Family, and Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
And due to popular demand and our own demand, and we're very blessed to have him here joining us for this trip, that is host, Schmodown champion. Well, you know, it still counts. They still call you champion, even when you win the belt.
Hey, once you're president, you're always president.
That's true. And Captain America enthusiast, Mike Kalinowski. Mike, how are you?
Gentlemen, it's a pleasure and an honor to get that email when you're like, we want you to join you, because I was like, I didn't want to overstep and say, guys, I want to do Winter Soldier with you guys. But yes, I'm on board. I'm hoping I'm going to have a better background. Apologize, I got Batman there for you guys right now, but I got things working just for you guys, just for the show. I got some ideas for the next. We got 5 more after this for you guys.
Yeah,
so
there you go. Perfect. I love it.
Setting the stage.
Yeah, and speaking of Batman, for those of you who are into Zack Snyder's Justice League, we'll be doing our review of it Sunday night at 7 p.m. PT. That one, batten down the hatches for that one, ladies and gentlemen.
Get ready. Get ready.
That gift, was it like Little Rascals? Oh boy.
We're gonna unite the 4 and hope we don't break the 4 after that review. That's for sure. So.
Hey, just knowing the tweets that we've been going back and forth, the text message, I'm like, oh boy,
gotta be something.
Be a barn burner and a ball buster and then everything else in between.
Absolutely. But today, this video, we're talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier. One more warning. This is going to be spoilers. So if you haven't watched it, go watch it and then come back and watch our review. Or, you know, if you don't give a crap, then just watch our review and go watch it and savor it even more the first time you watch it with our knowledge there underneath it. Let's go around the horn here and talk about your overall feelings, non-spoilery for now, about this episode 1 of Falcon and Winter Soldier. Vogel, we'll start with you. We're coming off of WandaVision and the wonkiness of magic, more spy-oriented, more grounded approach, government stuff going on here. What was your overall feeling coming out of episode 1?
Overall, I would say it's really interesting because I know that the way these things have rolled out was not the intention. I know that this was supposed to be the first thing out of the gate, and then WandaVision was supposed to along. And I get the logic of that. I get the let's do something that's more straight down the line Marvel and then do the weirder thing. I kind of like the way this has rolled out. I like that the first foray into Marvel's television series was super weird, WandaVision, homage to classic television, and that sort of started us in a really weird place, but by the end of it felt much more like a big Marvel adventure. And then we pick up right here, and it's the other side. Like you said, it's not the magic sorcery side. We're back straight down the line, soldier, government side. But it felt like an organic jump to go from episode 9 of WandaVision into this and pick up with some of the other characters and see what's been going on with them. So, even really timeline-wise, if you're going to be a chronological nerd, this makes more sense too, because WandaVision was 3 months after the blip?
I think it was
weeks.
3 weeks.
Sorry, 3 weeks after the blip, and this is now 6 months after the blip. So really, chronologically, it makes sense too. Beyond that, I thought it was great. I loved the pace of it. Maybe I wished it had picked up a little bit more by the end, that we got a little bit more of what the bigger story is, but I really love that they took their time. This was less the Falcon and Winter Soldier, and it was much more Sam and Bucky. It was the Sam and Bucky show, and I kind of really appreciated that. It was nice. It took its time. It laid the groundwork for some really, really interesting stuff. So I'm really excited to see where it goes, and I thought there was a lot of fun stuff to talk about in this episode.
Yep, definitely. Shannon, same thing here. I mean, what's your feelings overall? We got a lot more of these conversations, a lot more exploration into their personal lives, post blip. Certainly more to latch onto dramatically than just fight sequences.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely unexpected. I mean, I think using WandaVision's marketing as sort of a baseline.
Yeah.
The most of the stuff that we saw in that marketing was from those first 2 episodes. We got glimpses of things further on,
Right.
And that's just sort of what I presumed this was going to be. And it was very unexpected. I mean, terrific action sequence. But then you're really getting. You got kind of a slice of life of these 2 guys who I wouldn't say have been relegated to the background, but they were always in the shadows of the primary characters, in the shadows of Iron Man, of Captain America, of Thor. These guys coming to the forefront and seeing how they live their lives day to day. I mean, I really enjoyed it. I mean, again, it wasn't what I was expecting at all, but I really enjoyed what we got.
Yeah, Kalinowski, I mean, Michael brought up an excellent point, or Vogel brought up an excellent point where he spoke about the fact that we started with Wanda, and maybe accidentally that might have been the best way, because a lot of us are dealing with we're dealing with a surreal situation of COVID. So otherworldly weirdness, kind of figuring out what our lives are now with all this tragedy happening around us in the pandemic, it kind of helps soothe us. Now we're back into the rhythm of the MCU almost immediately here in the first episode of Falcon and Winter Soldier. And once again, we get this kind of day-to-day tasks, day-to-day life post-blip. Were you surprised that they went down this route? And what did you feel overall about this episode?
I was actually just thinking about that this morning, about how this was supposed to come out first.
Yeah.
Because a lot of the comments I was seeing was it felt very much like the continuation of the films. So, and I'll say this, I preface this by saying this was my most excited about show. Anything announced, this was it. Followed by kind of Moon Knight and then maybe Hawkeye. But this was the film, this was the show I'm ready for. That said, I saw the trailers. That said, I think the trailers misled myself and a lot of people, because I thought we were going to jump in with these guys, action. They were working together as a team, because at the end of we leave them at Endgame, they're together. Like, I thought we're going to be mid-story.
Yeah.
Sam's on that plane. Oh, we saw that plane tons of times in every trailer. Yeah. And I when Shannon and I saw it together, I leaned over, I was like, is that one of the guys, the undercover? Is one of these guys? Because it led into that whole sequence. Like, oh, Bucky's not here. Right. Okay. So that took me back. And then I was like, seeing where the shield is at the end of the episode, I'm like, oh, well, everything in the trailer was them practicing with the shield. So where's that now? Right. You've only got 5 episodes left. You've got a little over 200 minutes. You got a lot of ground to cover. And I was expecting a lot more action. I really was. Mm-hmm. The scene felt like an MCU film, a film like Winter Soldier, which I loved. The action was great, but it did leave me feeling a little like, okay. I think it was because of the trailers. I was expecting this buddy journey across the globe, and okay, we're not even together yet. Yeah. So I was like, oh, we got to get going here. So when I see the comments of it's a little slow, I'm not against it. I love the character moments. Civil War, my favorite scene was Tony and Steve signing the accords and with the pens. It's my favorite scene in the entire movie. Right. So I love the character moments. I love Bucky on the date. I love him. We'll talk about it with the scene. Yeah. That's my thoughts. I'm a little. I'm on board. You don't have to sell me on the show. Right. But I was a little okay. Like, oh, okay, all right.
I think that's fair to ding the marketing a little bit, because I was presented an action adventure show, and what I've gotten is an actual exploration of these gentlemen's lives. One dealing with PTSD over having been mind controlled for 90 years. Yeah. Another one dealing with the fact that he's been gone for 5 years, and now after kind of bringing the world back and having that great on your left moment. Now, once you're done with the battle, you got to actually go on with your life. And what is that like? So certainly there was that. I didn't expect that at all, but I actually kind of enjoyed that, actually, as more of a human, like hearing their stories. It made me relate to them, connect to them. And that's kind of what used to separate Marvel at the beginning when they came out from DC otherworldly, DC doing galaxy stuff, DC doing this massive, huge stuff. And Marvel was the ones like, let me iron my shirt. Let me do it was more of the mundane stuff. And so we're seeing some of those characteristics here. So, Mike, before we
I would point out just the counterpoint to that slight. I don't disagree, and I am excited to see where it goes. Given that they've sort of hyped this up as a 6-hour movie or a 6-episode movie, almost 6-hour movie, you got to start at the beginning of the movie, the first sixth of your movie, but also in
Did
an
Wanda start at the
episode,
beginning? Wanda just threw us in it.
True.
right?
Just saying,
and
they just threw us
to
in
that
like,
point,
you're like, what's going on? This is awesome. Let's go.
Yeah.
and to that point, in a episode that's a little under 40 minutes,
Really?
the first 10 minutes is an epic action sequence.
5 minutes into doing this, we got well to go before we sleep.
Speaking of the first 10 minutes.
I'm just my only point was as we're talking about this episode, we can't ignore the fact that it opens with a pretty impressive 10-minute action sequence for a TV show,
which we'll get into in just a second here. And
100%
just saying,
right.
just saying to everybody here, one last warning, spoiler warning, and now we're getting into it. So here we go. All right, this is of course coming to us from director Kari Skogland and Malcolm Spellman, who is the head writer on this, both working together to create this show here. But we start off. The episode's called New World Order. Once again, I'll put it out there. Someone in Marvel or Disney is a big fan of the NWO from wrestling. I'm just going to put that out there. Voodoo Child. Hulk Hogan used Voodoo Child. They used Voodoo Child in WandaVision. Now they start out the first episode with New World Order. It does have actual political and global implications, that title, but I'm just putting it out there for maybe. All right, so we start out, as I mentioned, with Sam ironing, putting his suit on, a beautiful, quiet moment. You get the score just coming underneath, a couple of notes here on the piano, looking at the shield, then putting it away. There's a somberness, a nobility to this beginning. And then we hear the exchange between him and Cap at the end of Avengers Endgame. And then, boom, we're right into this first action scene. We hear about the LAF, that they've captured a Captain Assad. They're in Tunisian airspace. And the first lieutenant, Torres, is on the ground doing intel, and we get into a badass action sequence with Sam fighting off Batroc the Leaper and his crew. Sam rolls up on the plane. We get to see Red Wing do his thing and engaging some great tight quarters fight sequences. This is very reminiscent of Captain America Winter Soldier when him and Batroc fought on that ship. And then they go into the air. It's even more awesome, leading to Sam flying around, really showing you what Sam could do with these wings now, what Red Wing can do. And these guys are using their flying squirrel gear. And eventually, Sam leads these missiles to blow up a majority of the helicopters. Batroc jumps out. Sam saves the captain, and just before they cross Libyan airspace. So, Kalinowski, I go to you first. This is the action you were looking for. This is a hell of a way to start this show right after a very somber beginning. What did you think about this?
Absolutely. I mean, I'll say this. For me, it felt like a film. The cinematography, the shots. We watched it again just right now. Like, you guys were like, let's watch it again. I was like, perfect, let's watch it. And I'm watching, it's like, this blends right into Winter Soldier. Like this, the tone, everything about it felt like this needs to be on the big screen. And I think this is just maybe me for WandaVision. When they weren't in the town, in the TV, when they were with the S.H.I.E.L.D. camp, it felt like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV to me. Yep. It really did, and it did lose me a lot. I was like, the budget, I don't know what the budgets are for each individual film, if they have it just felt so TV and small. Like this, everything about this film felt, it felt like a film to me. And WandaVision worked so good episode by episode week. This, I kind of feels like, give it to us all at once. If you want to watch all 6 hours as a movie, like, go for it, because this feels like a movie. So yeah, action was wonderful.
That's a great point you bring up. I felt the same way, Mike. I was like, okay, give me the next episode. I immediately wanted to finish this thing in one day. Yep. The way it starts off and the way they introduce these characters and reintroduce these characters and what's going on with their lives, I wanted more for sure. Yes. Vogel, let's move over to you, man. And it was interesting. We get Red Wing kicking some ass here. We get Falcon a lot more in control of these missions. I don't know what it is about Anthony Mackie playing this role now, but he seems to have really aged into the role. There's a real foundation and a strength and a power to his performance, an adultness to his performance, a maturity even that is so fun to watch and enjoyable. And you're cheering for him as an individual superhero in this whole mission. What did you think about this beginning?
I thought it was great. I think Anthony Mackie, totally great. I mean, the thing that's great about him and Sebastian Stan is they've both really grown into these characters, and by this point, they're really, really comfortable, and so they can play different shades of different things. Like, what I think is really interesting is going back to that very first scene, you know, they made a decision to sort of tell things out of order here. Like they show that first scene where he's clearly getting ready to go donate the shield, which is then the third scene. So they show him getting ready to go. Then we cut over to this scene in Tunisia, and then later we get back to that. And I think that's really important because usually like your first scene of a movie or the very first thing you're going to show is sort of, this is an important moment to sort of set the tone and kind of give some of the big ideas. So I think the fact that he, like you said, he's sitting there ironing, he's getting ready, he's putting the shield in the bag, and you just hear that scene from Endgame where he's like, you know, how does it feel? And he's like, feels like it's someone else's. And he's like, it isn't. And that clearly is what he's dealing with. Like Anthony Mackie, Falcon, Sam Wilson, post blip, is really dealing with what is his life post blip right now, and where does he go from here? And Steve Rogers kind of told him where to go, and he's clearly not ready for that yet. And then I think they also do a good job in the show with both Falcon and Winter Soldier, giving us the first scene where we see each of them is a really great reminder of who they are and what they're about. So in addition to this scene being filmed really, really well and just looking like a kick-ass action scene in a movie, we get it. Like, he's working with the Air Force now post-blip. This is what Falcon does. His powers are awesome. He can really fly the shit out of those wings. Red Wing is more badass now than ever. Civil War, Red Wing had some moves. Red Wing has clearly had some upgrades. He's doing really, really good here. I also really liked, to Kalinowski's point about Winter Soldier, definitely felt a lot like Captain America 2 Winter Soldier. And I also really liked how they used Batroc here. Like, they could have had really any villain. The scene is just to show what Anthony Mackie is doing. But, you know, Winter Soldier starts with Cap in that opening action sequence facing off with Batroc on the boat. And so when you have a series that is all about, am I going to be the next Cap or am I not? And having the first villain you face off with be the same villain that Cap did on the boat at the beginning of Winter Soldier, like, that's a really, really cool choice. And again, in a really subtle way, sort of sets this whole idea up about, is he the guy? Is he not the guy? What does it mean to be the guy? So I thought that was really, really cool too. I'm trying to think if there was anything else in these scenes, but I think that's it. Other than that, it was a blast. It was a really fun way to dive back in. And yeah, it felt like a Marvel movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And Shannon, we'll go to you next with if you've got some Easter eggs about this situation. But for me, overall, what it did is lay this groundwork of we're going to be dealing with political stuff here, global political issues. There's a hijacking here. He's trying to save this hostage. You don't want to go into Libyan airspace. You're in Tunisian airspace. You know, you're working with the Air Force. The way he jumps off the plane, very reminiscent again of Winter Soldier. The way Cap jumps off after having that conversation about dating Lillian from accounting with Scarlett Johansson there, with Black Widow rather. So all of this, it kind of like subtly lays the groundwork of what the stakes are going to be in this episode without even stating them overtly in the first scene.
Yeah, I mean, with that opening, I loved the choice to open with him ironing his clothes. Yeah, that's what a military man, John, you know this. That's what a military man would do.
Absolutely.
And I think one of the trademarks of a really strong actor is how much the audience can get from them thinking.
Yeah.
And as he's looking at the shield, as he's ironing his clothes, like, you see the decisions, you see the wheels turning. And I think what Vogel brought up was correct. The fact that this is somewhat out of sequence, that something possibly happened after Tunisia that led to this scene, that led to this choice that he is having to make. Because the shield is on the bed. It's not in the bag yet. That bag is not zipped. Like, there is a choice that he makes in that moment. Now, going into the action scene, it's very easy to forget that Sam Wilson is a legitimate badass. Because when you're working with Thor and you're working with Captain America, again, it's very easy to kind of get pushed to the background. Like, in the opening of Civil War, we saw how cool and how awesome Sam can be. And this was like times 10. And I mean, I loved the semi-sentient nature of Red Wing, and I'm wondering if we're gonna like, he said to Black Widow in Civil War, go ahead, pet him. Like I'm wondering, like, okay, what is the journey that Red Wing's gonna go on? Because from Civil War, like, okay, he's able to monitor things, he's a drone, and then seeing that, oh, he's actually packing some sort of miniature Gatling gun as well as missiles, like, oh, this thing is awesome. And like, just like one, I like that they included Joaquin Torres, because if you've read, Sam Wilson Captain America, he's going to become someone as well. We won't spoil that yet in case our audience hasn't read the book.
This is spoilers.
I think we can spoil that.
Yeah.
So
Since when do you have an issue with Easter eggs, pal? All right, go ahead.
So we know that at least in the comics, he takes up the mantle of Falcon to Sam's cap.
Right.
And as Sam is sort of repairing, when they're in Tunisia and they're having coffee, when he's repairing that thing, and Torres has an idea like, "Ooh, what about this?" And Sam stops him. It's like, "Oh, is this because at some point Joaquin is then going to be repairing those wings and Red Wing as well?"
Right. Another part of this with Joaquin Torres is the way he becomes the second Falcon is he gets captured by Carl Malice, who is the power broker in Marvel Comics, and he essentially gets turned into a physical combination of a bird and a man, and that's how he becomes the second Falcon. I imagine that they're not going to be doing that here, but
I have a feeling that's going to be streamlined a little bit.
I think that's the power broker's a great thing, man.
Yeah.
It would be great if they went into it, but again,
I think it's on the table.
yeah, so there's a hint to it in the end credits.
No,
for sure,
I mean,
when we get to it. Yeah,
I mean, we talk about they did the whole thing back with the twins and experimentation. It's like,
yep.
But like,
I
really liked him. I wasn't sure how I'd feel about him, like from the early, but I love that kind of fanboyish to be working with him. So that came off really kind of genuine too.
Yeah.
I really like that.
I agree, and it's nice to have another Latino involved here in the MCU. And if he does carry the mantle of Falcon to Sam's cap, it's going to be a lot of fun to follow this, because it was, like you said, Kalinowski, it was authentic. It felt real. It was fanboying from an honest place, and you like to see that for sure.
It seemed like in that character, and then Sam to that extent of becoming Captain America, we talk about diversity, and there's a lot of talk going on with Superman and what's not in moving this and that.
Right.
These characters were in the comics, and it was natural. It was natural for Sam to go into Cap. It was natural for Joaquin to become Falcon. It just felt, it wasn't forced, and it was a great run in the comics. So if he moves that way, that'd be great.
Yeah, for those of you who don't know, Danny Ramirez, he was in Assassination Nation, so maybe go back and watch that, and he will be in Top Gun Maverick later on this year. Yeah, whenever the hell that thing drops, he's going to be in it. So, one day. All right, let's cut to Tunisia. As Shannon mentioned here, Sam and Torres are talking about things as he's fixing Red Wing a little bit after this mission has been carried out. We find out that it's been 6 months since the blip, so setting this adventure at this time, talking about Stark level tech. They get some love from a random Tunisian father who's saying, thank you for bringing a member of my family back. Then Torres, which you think he's kind of being stupid, taking selfies, and this is not what as someone in the military, you don't do that in military intelligence, but then you realize he's actually looking for this red handprint, which is the Flag Smashers. He finds it there. He talks about how these people, the Flag Smashers, are these people who are anti-borders. They're anti-fascists, I guess they say, as saying the world was better during the blip, and they want a world unified without borders. And then he drops this bomb on him, Torres, asking Sam if Steve Rogers is living on a secret base on the moon. Sam smiles and says, you can't listen to those people who say that kind of stuff, kind of a shot at conspiracy theorists. And then Sam says he has to head on off to Washington. So, Vogel, we get a little more of this interaction between these two guys, a little more of exploring what their relationship might be coming down the road. And I don't know. I enjoyed the scene. What did you think?
It's a great scene. It did a few things. Like, the whole first opening action sequence with Torres, you're kind of like, okay, like that's Joaquin Torres. Maybe he's going to become Falcon, whatever. But this is the scene where you're like, oh, I like this guy. He could be Falcon. If this is the road they go down, whether he puts the wings on in the end of these 6 episodes, or they're just laying the pipe for him to become Falcon down the road or whatever, that could be really, really cool. He's really enjoyable. Some things that I really liked. We talked about this in our WandaVision reviews. When Wanda goes to Westview in episode 8, I guess, and Westview was like a rundown, shitty town, and all of us assholes were like, why is it so shitty? And it took us a whole week to realize that it was the blip. We're like, oh yeah, like these people just fucking came back from the blip. They're struggling. Like, of course. We were all like, God, we're idiots. So I guess maybe I'm heightened to this now, but I really think this episode went out of your way to sort of realize in 1,000 ways. I mean, it keeps getting more and more. But even this guy just coming up and be like, "Hey, Avengers! You know, you saved my family," and you're like, "Man, yeah, like the whole world is dealing with this post-blip situation and just making the most of it." And you know, going from like Spider-Man Far From Home, where they sort of had fun with the blip, like, oh yeah, this is kind of fun and quirky. And then, as we said, with Monica Rambeau's introduction, where you're like, fuck, man, the blip was no joke. And now just kind of seeing how it's kind of reset the landscape. You know, we talked in our Road to Falcon and Winter Soldier about the Flag Smashers. And in the comics, Flag Smasher, to your point, is sort of nationalist, anti-fascist, like, you know, like take down, or anti-nationalist, anti-fascist, take down the borders. I think it's really cool that they've sort of reframed the Flag Smashers to be coming out of the blip. Yeah. That this isn't something that always existed. This is, these people lived these 5 years and now things are trying to get back to normal and they're like, fuck normal, we want this. It's kind of really compelling. So I thought that was really, really interesting, a cool way to sort of reset that. Yeah. And then I think my favorite part was as they sort of get into the whole, is Captain America on the moon or whatever, and you're laughing about these conspiracy theories. It just, in my head, it struck me how funny it would be if like Sam had actually just been honest. He's like, "Hey, here are these things. It sounds kind of crazy, but is Cap on the moon?" And you're like, "Nah, man, he's not on the moon. We had to do this thing where we jumped through time, went to some different realities, picked up some Infinity Stones, came back. He returned them, but he was gone for a long time. Came back looking old. He went to go live with his lady, like back in the 30s. Like it's a whole thing. It's hard to explain, but yeah, it's not the moon." You're like, it's way weirder than the moon. It's way weirder. That's true. But yeah, so like a lot of really good stuff here.
Okay. Kalinowski, I go to you on this. You know, Captain America enthusiast, Captain America historical person, the Flag Smashers. Talk to us a little bit more about that and their placement in the Captain America story and how they've battled him.
It's so funny because they have, you know, in the history of Captain America, they had always like, this is Flag Smasher.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah,
this guy right there in the white with the black. That's him. So it's like that's the great thing about Marvel is they take what could be ridiculous back in the day and they make it relevant. And I think it's such a good, you know, and when they said that, they're like, "We're World Without Borders." I'm kind of like, is that really a bad thing? Like, I was like, we're all on Earth. We're all of one world. So it's like, okay, I'm not again, like, that's makes you go, huh, okay. So it's fascinating to see. And that's what Marvel, I love that they do that. They take these characters from decades that they've had that are ridiculous and cheesy and they just make them great. And to see like with the camera, like that seemed like a Pokemon Go thing to me, is that everyone's walking around with their phones and whatever that app technology is. You know what it is? Like, what is that app technology where it's your phone, you hold it up to the real world and things pop up? Like, I don't know what that specific thing is called. Yeah. Vogel, I'm looking to you. You don't know?
It's, I know, and I literally
there's a term. Like, not virtual reality, it's something
augmented reality.
Yes.
Augmented,
so that was cool to see them using that. Did it strike you guys as weird that there's Falcon at a table out? He's got his high-tech equipment out. Here we go. Let's just work on this. I was like, well, maybe you go inside. Like, you're just out on the table there.
A hotel.
There's something, but there's something that I kind of dug about. Maybe not having his tech out, maybe not like, you know, working on Red Wing.
That's a lethal weapon right there.
But there is
a mass destruction on the table.
Well, he didn't. Okay,
it took out 2 helicopters.
I do think there's something really interesting, and people have brought this up about the MCU before, but with the exception of like Peter Parker and maybe one or two others, like we don't really do secret identities in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Like we all know who the heroes are, and so the fact that whether it's in Tunisia, somebody just come up and be like, "Hey, Avenger," or when he's in Louisiana, or like the fact that these guys and girls go around and everyone just knows who they are. Like, hey, you guys saved the world. Like, I don't know. There's something kind of cool about that reality to me. I think there's something fun about that, as opposed to I have to go run and look, I love superhero secret identity stuff too. So I'm not saying I think it's better or worse, but it's interesting to see that as opposed to let me go run in the alley and change into my costume real quick.
Now, did you guys pick up, let me say this real quick. Did you guys pick up, I thought it might have been kind of a dig or a nod to, there was a run of the comics, I want to say it's like 5-6 years ago now, where Bucky took on the mantle of, they called him the man on the wall. And he was like on the moon. He was like this defense against Earth. Like this kind of, I think Nick Fury was it, but then Bucky took it over, and
Nick
it was
Fury,
a bad, like I didn't like it at all. It was
Nick Fury became a watcher,
yeah,
and what he had been doing, Bucky took his place on the moon, right? Exactly.
So I'm like, was this kind of the little nod to that, like throwing it in there? Because we did have a guy on the moon watching out. It was a bad storyline, and they got rid of that, but I was like, oh, maybe that was a little nod to that.
Yeah, Shannon, do you have any Easter eggs for this particular sequence?
I mean, I didn't really see any Easter eggs, but I did like how the Sam-Torres relationship kind of mirrors the Steve-Sam relationship from Winter Soldier. That you have the guy, you have the primary, and then you have the secondary, and like the fact that like Sam knew who Steve was. Like as they're running, he's like, "Oh my gosh, that's Captain America!"
Right.
And it was more of a playful competition. Whereas Torres, as you guys pointed out, he's kind of fanboying over Falcon a little bit.
Yeah.
And I really liked Sam's line. Well, one, I thought it was interesting, like because you can argue all day about was Thanos' plan was terrible, and he might have been right because in that 5 years. The planet started to heal. Yeah. And the idea that these people who were living in that 5 years and were kind of like, all right, finally, like the planet's getting better. We're starting to move on with our lives. And then half of the population comes back. And it's like, oh, that is going to throw us into chaos. And Sam's line is, if something helps one group of people, it might not help another.
Right. A lot of levels to that one. And we're seeing the same thing happening now as we're seeing the pollution levels start to increase again because people are being vaccinated, going back to work. Businesses are opening up. They've already got statistics in infrared showing how pollution levels are starting to rise again, which kind of mirrors what happened with the blip where Captain America says, wow, it's nice to see the whales out on Hudson Bay again. You know, that kind of stuff. Mikey, sorry, I cut you off. What were you going to say?
I don't remember. Keep going.
Okay, all right. Well, let me throw
it wasn't important.
All right, fair. Let me throw a little bit of an Easter egg in here. Another possibility. I saw this from Screen Rant. They said that in the comics, there are several groups of people who do live in secret bases on the moon. The most famous of these are the Inhumans. But this might be a reference to the Watcher, a powerful alien who's forbidden from interfering in human affairs. At least in theory, the Watcher is soon to make his MCU debut in Marvel's What If series. So maybe they're throwing a little something out there to connect everything as we go along. All right, let's head off. Let's see. Let's head off to Washington.
I think Screen Rant's getting those theories that they're starting again. There we go. It's like because he knows the thing. Things in it.
We don't want to get Mephisto again.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know who's on the moon? Mephisto's on the moon.
Mephisto's on
the moon. Moon, Mephisto. No, it's it.
Perfect. Nailed it. All right, let's head off to Washington. Sam delivers a beautifully eloquent speech at the Smithsonian in honor of Steve Rogers. Talks about the millions of people coming back. So we're from the blip. So we're really kind of hammering this point home, needing new heroes, which is very interesting, and hands over the shield because he thinks it's too connected to Steve Rogers. After a politician shakes his hand saying it was the right decision, Rhodes, who's been sitting there watching the speech, takes him on for a walk. And of course, we know Rhodes, Don Cheadle is going to be coming back in Armor Wars. They take a walk and they talk about how, when Sam left or got blipped out, his nephews were babies. Now they're young kids. And they talk about the shield. And Rhodes says, man, we need that shield. Why'd you turn it down? And Sam's like, look, we lived 70 years without a shield. And he says those are different times. They see all the exhibits. We see these Captain America exhibits. And Rhodes finally puts him on the spot and asks him about not taking up the shield. And he says it's a crazy world right now, that allies are enemies and the world is broken. People are looking for somebody to fix it. It's a new day, brother. And with that, Rhodes walks off and Sam is left to kind of look at this picture of Captain America, or this Captain America costume or uniform rather, and his motorcycle. Shannon, what'd you think about this scene? A lot of overtures here too. Black men discussing this idea of the shield, discussing herodom, discussing walking through the history of America and the decades that are there through Captain America's adventures and experiences.
Well, as you said, an incredibly eloquent speech by Sam. Like, it was really just one of those, it was just a really, really nice moment. But man, I can't help but think when he turned after they were, putting the shield in that case, when he turned and that maybe he was not entirely 100% behind this decision. Yeah. And then when he and Rhodes, I lived them walking through the display, the setup, the Captain America exhibition. love seeing that stuff in the background. You get glimpses of Bucky, you get glimpses of the other Howling Commandos.
Yeah.
And when Rhodes, well, I'm guessing Rhodes is probably his liaison to the military. That's my guess.
Yeah.
But when he asks him, like, why didn't you take it up? I believe what Sam says. I do believe that he's telling the truth, but I have to think that there was something else behind him handing over that shield.
Yeah. And clearly he hasn't used it in 6 months because that's what it seems like, because he's not taking up the shield. He's putting it away. And that politician's going to come back later. That smarmy politician is going to come back later with that situation. Vogel, what'd you think of this scene, man? I mean, it's a kind of subtly powerful scene between these two black men.
Yeah, man. This scene, no accident that they used Rhodey. I mean, having two black men talk about this, I think, was really powerful. And really, when you think about what Sam said in his speech, he goes, we need new heroes, ones suited for the times we're in. Symbols are nothing without the women and men that give them meaning. And although he's talking about Steve, the times that we're in are different now, both in the real world that we are currently dealing with and in the world of the Marvel Universe. And so Sam's saying that, thinking that he's not the one to give that shield meaning, that he's not the hero that they need, that he's not the symbol. And Rhodey kind of being like, dude, I think you are. Like, I think that's really, really powerful. I thought it was a really great scene. I don't know, Shannon. I don't fully agree with you. Like, I think that he fully believes that the shield only belongs to Steve. Like, I think that his issue is that he doesn't think he can ever live up to Cap. And I might be wrong. I'm not like, yeah, that's completely incorrect, but there might be something more to it. But I really think this is, look, Captain America, that's some big shoes to fill. And so it totally is valid that as Falcon is kind of searching for what his role is in this post-blip world, he doesn't think he's got it. And I think he really does believe that maybe nobody has it, and that this should just be this should be Steve's thing. And that, so then when we get down to what happens later on, you're like, well, shit, that went out the window. The other little kind of like fun, like Easter eggy sort of cool fun thing that I thought was I love the Cap Museum, period. I just think it's awesome. It gives me chills every time. We see Bucky there as a nice little reminder that Bucky is part of that whole world of Cap's world. But then you see when they keep walking that they've clearly been expanding the Cap Museum as time went on, because we see an entire area devoted to the vanished, everyone who disappeared during the blip, right next to a big picture of the giant donut spaceship that came over New York City, with like a big headline that says "Out of Hiding." And so like it's just kind of cool that this museum of the Cap exhibit has been updated as things have been going on in the MCU, which I thought was neat.
Yeah. What'd you think about this scene here? Overall, Kalinowski, and then walking through this exhibit. What did you think what do you think the show was trying to say by having this conversation?
It's like, I'm very curious. Like, what do you guys feel? Because they have not said, is Steve dead? Like to the world.
Clearly, they have not said he's dead.
To the world. Thinks, I'm not saying us is like, where are we with thinking is Evans come back? Like to this world of the MCU post blip, 5 years, Endgame happened.
Yeah.
Thanos came, they were there saving everybody. So people know that the Avengers saved them, but to everybody, is Cap dead? Is there a memorial? Is there a tomb somewhere to him? Or is it just he went on his way?
Yes.
Or are they?
No, I think I could be wrong. We don't know. You're right. They don't explicitly say
there. So,
but I think given the fact that they've handed the shield over to the exhibit,
right,
and given what Sam's speech is, right, and given the fact that Torres is like, is Cap really on the moon? Is he really not gone? Like, I think I think the Avengers are like, we're not going to tell everybody that that old man Crackers over here is really Steve Rogers. I think that I think so. I don't know where old Steve kind of went, but I think the implication is that to the world, post this battle with Thanos, both Iron Man and Cap are gone. Like we lost them both. I think that's the implication. I could be wrong, but that's what it seems like.
Oh, certainly the Iron Man thing is true because later on the lone officer says my condolences when he mentions Stark. But overall, Kalinowski, it seems like they're really trying to hammer the point home how the specter of Captain America hangs over Sam and Bucky as well. But this idea also, does a black man want to take up the mantle of something a white man has created and try to step in and what the pressure that is, or does he want to walk his own path? I think that's part of it. And is America ready for a black Captain America, which was an issue in the comics?
I think I don't know what's coming. Right. Knowing that I think Carl Lumley is in the cast,
yes,
and there's rumors that he's Isaiah Bradley, that there was a black Captain America. Like, I think this was specifically done for him to be like, I can't be Captain America. There's no way. He's my friend, but a black man taking this mantelpiece, I cannot do this.
Yeah, how much more powerful will it be? Sorry, Mike. How much more powerful will it be if he goes on this journey? Because it seems like they're setting up him kind of circling back around to wanting to become Captain America. What if he finds out a black man was the first Captain America? Yeah.
But also to think, now we know there's a scene where he's practicing with that shield.
Yes.
So how does he get that, and how does he take it from U.S. Agent or who's Captain America? Like that?
I think Kalinowski makes a really good point.
Yeah.
I think that we all kind of assumed that Isaiah Bradley was going to be a part of this story, but I think that, like, I think to Kalinowski's point from earlier, I think we all sort of thought we were jumping in and these guys were all doing the hero thing and he was trying to fill the shoes. Yeah. The fact that he very much feels like he can't fill the shoes makes the idea of Isaiah Bradley, of the original Black Captain America, being a part of this much more emotionally powerful, I think.
More resonant.
If he is, but I think that the idea that as Falcon is wondering if this is the right role for him, particularly in the context of him being a black hero, finding out that there was this guy before Steve Rogers, I think could be really, really powerful.
Yeah, and they've set themselves up to walk across tight ropes with lighted flames underneath them with the storylines they're laying out. This is dangerous territory to walk into, because when you hear about the history of this country trying out vaccines on black men, trying out viruses on African Americans in this country, like that, this is kind of the minefield they're walking into, and I appreciate the Stones to do so. I just hope they land that plane if they're going to present it in a way that is satisfactory to the community they are speaking about. I think that's my concern as we walk into this more and more. All right, let's cut to the hotel here. We've got some nerdy programmers talking out in the lobby. Then Bucky, out of nowhere, breaks through as the Winter Soldier through a wall, kind of like in a Dark Knight Returns there through the wall. And the Winter carries out this mission, kills a bunch of people, says Hail Hydra as he kills the last person. And we turn to see one of the programmers nervously trying to open the door. Bucky walks up to him, shoots him in the head, can't have witnesses, and he wakes up from this nightmare lying on the floor. We go to him having this conversation with a psychiatrist who talks about these 3 rules, him making amends, talks about him having to speak about his nightmares as a contingency for his pardon. All these things she's Amy Aquino, who was fantastic as this therapist, trying to get him to speak more openly about this stuff, try to get him to recalibrate, reassimilate back into society. Kalinowski, you tell me, man, what'd you think about this whole scene as we're being introduced to Winter Soldier?
I have to say this because this, to me, was missing one thing. So we're watching last night, Shannon and I, and again, I watched it with Shannon today, my Shannon, and she also didn't pick up on it. You open in the scene, it's got kind of a sepia tone to it. It's got this grand architecture. I thought, we're in like the 60s or 70s here. I didn't know where we were. So nothing really led to me to believe. It made me Winter Soldier is on a mission. Okay, so then later when this character pops up and the connection, I didn't make the connection. All it needed for me was West Germany, December 17th, 2012. It just needed a date stamp on there for me to go, that's when this is. Because, and I don't want something spoon-fed to me. I don't need the guy to, but so when the grandfather later, or the father later, I was just like, it wasn't connecting for me right away. And Shannon also, I go, do you get who this guy is? And she's like, no, what's the connection here? I go, the son from before. Because think about it. He was the Winter Soldier up until 2014.
Right.
He was doing the Hydra's business till that time. So this could have been 2013. And it makes sense. So it just, the time and the way that the architecture, if they had been a more modern building and he's a computer programmer, wouldn't have thought anything of it. But because it had the grand, ornate, old school architecture, it felt like a period piece to me. And we've seen the Winter Soldier in different periods. So and that could be just on me. Maybe no one else thought that. But I just needed a little bit of a timestamp. You know, the date, Winter Soldier mission report number 15.
Totally.
Operation so-and-so.
Well, what'd you think about the interaction with him and the therapist? Did you like that as an introduction into his PTSD, into his kind of exploring all of this as well?
Yeah, I think because again, that's a thing he's going through now. Like, I love the fact that he said, "I found a little peace in Wakanda, and I've been fighting for 90 years." Like, that was awesome because you see the pain, but he's like, he doesn't want to open up, and she's like, "Bullshit, you're lying. You know, what do you want? Peace?" He's like, "Bullshit. Yeah. You know, I know you don't. What is it?" And so that was great, and but also threw a little humor in there. And I love the fact that they're tying in the comics recently. He's making a penance for what he did before in the past, and he's kind of hunting down these soldiers for a government organization. So I love that. It was kind of his reemergence into the world. So because we think about that, like he jumped right from Shuri fixing him. We think he's fixed, but is he?
Yeah.
So he's still in just to see, but then you do see over the episode, like, oh man, this guy is not only going after old Hydra agents that are kind of in hiding, but he's also going after the people that he wronged. So, man,
the making amends journey is not an easy journey, Shannon. We're seeing it here throughout. He's got this little notebook, which we'll get into here if we want to. But certainly, I mean, him setting up this Senator Atwood, her saying, like, you better take out Congressman Lockhart for real. Like, take him out if he's going to be going up against me. So, there's going to be more of the Hydra residue going throughout this series, it seems like. But what stood out for you as you were watching this sequence of events from his nightmare to this conversation with his therapist?
I mean, we haven't seen Bucky really Winter Soldier out since Winter Soldier. We haven't seen this in 7 years. So when you see sort of the efficient brutality that he employs taking these guys out, when he rolled over the banister and landed on the steps, it was just, it was so satisfying. But then when he wakes up, he's on the floor. And again, you think Winter Soldier, you think Sam's talking to Steve, like, your bed's too squishy, right? You're like, you get used to sleeping on the floor, use a rock as a pillow. You're getting more and more how these two are going to connect. Besides the Steve Rogers connection. I mean, Sebastian Stan plays awkward humor very, very well. Because it's not like nerdy awkward. It's the uncomfortable shifting in your seat. I don't want to be here. I don't want to talk about this. Like, very, very humorous scene while also getting a lot of good storytelling out at the same time. And when you get to the end of that making amends sequence, I think as the audience, we're expecting him like, oh, he's going to Winter Soldier out. He's going to snap their necks when he says, I'm no longer the Winter Soldier. I'm James Bucky Barnes. And I'm no longer helping you do this. And he flashes this super weird smile and he takes off. I mean, I love the international intrigue of it with like that he's fully kind of using his Winter Soldier training to make amends for things. And also, I think we get an idea of like, oh, this is what we get the first glimpse of what this series could be about. Yeah, Mike. I mean, from the beginning, that opening action sequence, Sam is killing people, and now we get to this sequence. All right, and now we get to this sequence. Here is Bucky, what he did before, but also here's Bucky setting up the former Hydra agents to go down hard, to be convicted, to be imprisoned, exposing all of them. So in a way, he's killing their careers as well. So kind of it's a way more adult approach to this story. What was your feeling coming out of this scene, and what'd you take from it?
I just am really impressed with your parallel of going from killing lives to killing careers. That was really
their careers, their life.
That was really good. The main thing that I took away from all of this, in addition to everything you guys said, is the really well done, succinct storytelling. Like we spend the first chunk with Sam, and we get this big action sequence that sort of establishes this is who Falcon is. This is what his powers are, and this is where he is post-blip. He's kind of fallen back on his military roots, and he's in the Air Force helping out there. Right. And then we see what he's dealing with, which is, I don't know that I can be the next Captain America. These are really big shoes to fill. I don't know that that's me. And then to remind us, we dive right into classic Winter Soldier. We see him, as Shannon said, just brutally killing people, ultimate badass. And you're like, and it just is if you are not up to speed on Marvel movies, it gives you a really good, succinct, this is who we're talking about. And even if you've seen all the movies, like Shannon said, it's been a while since we've seen Bucky in this mode, and it's really kind of awesome. I mean, it's horrible, but it's awesome to watch. And then even with the therapist scene, kind of having her talk through things, and then have him talking about, well, I am making amends. You know, I didn't do anything illegal, as he does something illegal. I didn't really hurt anybody, as he punches someone in the face. He's like, I definitely did number 3, and he does. And it's just really well done. The interplay between him and Amy Aquino, really, really funny. Just like, also like, she's like, I don't know if she's a horrible therapist or an amazing therapist. She's like, fuck you. Let me tell you what's going on with you. And you're like, wow, this is intense therapy.
Those are usually the best therapists.
I also think it's interesting. You know, it's interesting that for all that he's done, he clearly did get a pardon because, okay, you were an unwilling assassin for 90 years, but you did save half the universe. So I guess we're gonna give you a clean slate here. Yeah, but we're still keeping an eye on you. But yeah, so I thought it was just really, really succinct storytelling, and I also think it's interesting, kind of to what you were saying, like. You see this guy who, now that he's no longer under Hydra's influence, he still has all of these skills and all these abilities, and he's trying to use them for good. Like, he wants to be a good guy, and then you've got Sam over here, who's, like, living in this shadow of Cap as well. Like, it's interesting that we have these two characters that both in their own ways are living in these shadows of Steve Rogers, and I think it's, like, they do a really good job in this, like, first sort of reintroduction to Sam, and then following it up with this reintroduction to Bucky, kind of getting you up to speed with where they are and on board with what their struggles are.
And then he finds he can make amends a little bit easier towards the people he actually wants to get into trouble versus the people he actually has to make amends to, which is going to cost him more emotionally, right? We'll see that. Real quick Easter egg. Oh yeah, sorry, Mike. Go ahead.
No, I love talking to you guys because then I get notes and I'm like, oh, that's good to say. One of talk about the fighting, like I love the way that they use, like he did that one shot. He throws up his arm to block, and he's firing right next to it, so he's hitting that with the bullets to block him as a shield. And they don't focus on it. It's just such the attention to detail in the fighting in these shows. And that's why I was so hyped for this show. But then do you guys realize, like, Bucky marrying Steve with his empty apartment? Like, their both apartments were empty. Yeah. And it made me realize that Bucky and Sam are the two different sides of Steve Rogers, where you got the patriot that wants to do right, and you've got this man out of time. Yeah. And the two of them would equal Steve. And I think that's why this show going forward is such, because they're the two halves,
right?
Yeah, you know, and it's fascinating to see them like this.
It really is. We're about to get into it as Johnny introduces the next scene, but they really do play up a lot of the Bucky being the new man out of time. Like with Steve, we got to play a lot of it, and with Bucky, it's a little bit sadder. Because at least Steve had everybody knew he was the man out of time, and he was the big guy, and he was the big hero, and Bucky's kind of the man out of time, but doesn't really tell anybody, which kind of makes it more sad.
Right. But also, Steve just got to sleep. Bucky was killing people. Like
Also that, yeah.
And again, if you ever fall asleep in the ice, that's not so good. It's, I mean, you know, I guess 6 of one, half a dozen. But you know, to your point, also in this scene. Bucky has been ignoring Sam's calls, Sam's texts.
Yeah, that's right.
And so that's a part of this too. Is like he's not ready to confront this stuff yet, but someone is reaching out who wants to unify these two, as you spoke about. The fact that they are two, of course, they're their own men legitimately in their lives, but they symbolize two halves of Captain America who is hanging over this series. So for sure. Let's get into some quick Easter eggs because they open the book, and it's also very similar to what Captain America was doing in a Civil War, when he had all those movies he had to watch.
Yeah,
but
Cap was like watch Battlestar Galactica. Bucky's like, talk to these people who I killed. Like
Michael Jackson, food.
Yeah. So here are the names: A. Rostov, P.W. Hauser, F. Ganad, I. Talhauser, H. Henriksen, N. Sorry, T. Osman, L. Kaminsky, M. Kaminsky, C. Kuznetsov. P.W. Hauser, I thought is a reference to Paul Walter Hauser because him and Sebastian Stan go at it on Twitter all the time.
Yeah,
and they were in I, Tonya together, so it's possible.
I think that's the thing. It's got to be a nod to him,
right?
I think so. I think it is.
Yeah. Len Kaminsky could be Len Kaminsky, who was a notable writer for the Marvel Comics. Colonel Andrei Rostov was the Red Barbarian, who was the warden in a gulag that Bucky was confined to after killing Russian citizens in Ed Brubaker's Captain America and Winter Soldier comics. Kuznetsov is also listed. There was a scientist who worked for the Soviet space program in the Marvel comics, Kuznetsov, and then Baron Zemo, of course, being in there because we know he is going to come up at some point here in the show for sure. And is there anything else? Oh, S. Whitaker was one of the most important Marvel writers who also wrote several Captain America stories. So not everything is alluding to stuff we're going to see down the road, but it's nice little Easter eggs for sure to throw in. All right, let's move on. Speaking of making amends, let's move on to Bucky going to meet and have lunch with Mr. Nakajima, who is we find out is the father of the young programmer we saw killed in this nightmare that he was having. They get into it. He was watching Mr. Nakajima get into it over trash in a lot, which is very reminiscent of how Bucky broke up the fight between Steve Rogers in the hallway as well. Little shout out to them. They head off to have sushi, where Mr. Nakajima sells out Bucky to the beautiful young woman behind the bar there. That is actress Miki Ishikawa, who is playing Leia. She's beautiful. They showcase how this is also showcasing how he's having trouble assimilating to even the simplest things, like, trying to talk to someone, trying to have conversation with a woman he might have an interest in. Then Mr. Nakajima is triggered. His memories for his son are triggered by seeing some sushi there. And he says that it felt strange, the explanation he was given for his son's death. It has never sat well with him. And you see Bucky can't tell him, just can't do it. But his way of being friends with him and hanging out with him is his way of making amends, but he can't quite get there just yet in this conversation. Vogel, what struck you about this, man, or the scene overall?
First thing I thought was same as you, is like Bucky always breaking up fights in alleys. That's his thing. Like that's his jam. It's what he does. Mr. Nakajima was just like a delightful old man. Like, he was great. I love a man that's like, he was like, don't put your garbage in my garbage. Yeah. When the guy was like, my name is my name is Unique. It's like Monique, but unique. And he was like, nope, stupid. Wouldn't even go get sushi with Bucky until Bucky was like, I'm gonna pay for it. He's like, yeah, okay, we'll do it. Like, it was delightful. Great scene. He was just such a fun character. Best wingman ever. Like, being like, I'm gonna hook you up on this date. And like, I was watching it and I was like, okay, well, like, why is Bucky friends with this guy? Like, I was like, okay, well, Bucky, just like Cap, he is 100
that's all he
plus
knows.
Years old.
Yeah.
He's more comfortable around old people. I guess that's what they're just trying to show us here. And the second that he saw the mochi ice cream and started talking about his son, the second that he was like, my son, before he died, I was like, oh, I'm
the idiot that didn't catch on right away, huh? I'm the idiot.
I'm not saying you're the idiot. I do understand. I think you make a good point about contextualizing when it was, because it could have been any time. But as soon as that old guy was like, okay, my son loved mochi, because I was like, this is such a cute scene. I love this. See, this is gonna be all right. And then I was like, oh man, I can't believe it. I was like, this is rough stuff. This is rough stuff.
Shannon, what did you think, Shannon?
Well, I mean, obviously a lovely scene. I thought the actor who plays Yori, very, very funny. I love the Unique, and like when he actually raises his fist, like, all right, now this is happening, God. And you see Bucky be like, okay, stop. You see, like, his eyes get big for a second. Yeah. But when you get to the sushi bar, it was very reminiscent of Black Widow and Steve and Winter Soldier, when she's saying, why don't you ask this girl out? Why don't you ask this girl out? It's that man at a time. And it's really interesting how Bucky has become sort of the other side of the coin to Steve Rogers, of how he's dealing with acclimating to the modern world. Yeah. But the moment that Yori started speaking Japanese and he said, my son, I sat up.
You did,
and I looked at Kalinowski, and I was
kind of like, what's going on? What? Yeah, I was like,
I was like, that's his son. And then Kalinowski went, well, that's a little convenient. And I'm like, no, he's making them now.
Yeah, that's a little convenient. And then I was just like, oh no. Yeah.
And for all you Seinfeld fans, that gentleman, Ken Takamoto, who plays Mr. is the chairman in that Opposite George episode. The opposite, that's
right.
him. That's him.
right.
That's the chairman. So very interesting stuff to see him do. But his lunging, I was like, God damn, that's a city man. That's a city elderly man. Kalinowski, what stood out from you watching this connection? I know you speak of how you missed it the first time, but now you caught it this time.
But what did strike me in this scene with Bucky, especially with the girl, was if you remember when we saw pre-Winter Soldier Bucky, he was a ladies' man.
Yes, he was.
Always had women. He was always smart talking. He's like, let's go, you and me, buddy. You got these girls, these broads.
Right.
See ya, pal. I'm going with the chicks, the ladies. Wherever he was a ladies' man. Yep. So to see him so awkward now and he doesn't know how to talk and he's like, we'll get to the next scene where he does meet her, but like, it's just this, his head is so fried from the Winter Soldier reprogramming. You think about how many times he's fighting it and they like fry his brain. His brain is scrambled eggs in there. And so, it's sad to see this guy that was this ladies' man. He's this, confident. And that was his one, thing over Steve, especially. Steve was, the awkward guy, but now he's reprogramming. He's having to learn everything over again. So he comes back and he wants a normal life. He can't even have that normal, like the thing he was good at.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay. And you feel for him. You're just like, oh, God, this guy. Yeah. So that's what stood out for me. And just like, I just love him as a character. I think Sebastian took, and we knew in First Avengers, like, okay, maybe someday we'll see him this, and to see this fruition and to let him build a character for now, 10 years?
Yeah.
It's so, and it plays back like WandaVision. It goes back to his other films. You go back and you're just like, it enriches the films.
Yep.
Yeah, but to go from ladies' man to assassin to recovering assassin, like to where he's at now, it's like that's a ride.
Yeah, and he says like, you got to work up into these things. It's been 80 years or 1945 since I've had to work up to talking to a girl, and it's.
I love that he added when he said it. He did the whole. I haven't danced since 1945. He goes, it feels like. like he's always like, there's always like, I mean, nah, obviously not really, because I would be like 106.
Let me ask you that, because it'll in another scene, because right there. Yeah. Does the world know?
No, I don't think about him at all.
Because he does the scene later. It's like, how long old are you? It's like 100 and something, and you're like, is it common knowledge that the Avengers I don't know.
She laughs.
Yeah, she laughs. And he's making a joke.
Yeah,
but okay.
They have referred to him by name, but they haven't actually said this is Steve Rogers' friend from the 1940s.
Right.
They have referred to him as James Buchanan, the Winter Soldier.
Okay. Right. Exactly.
But who referred to him as that?
In Civil War, when they're talking, when they're on the lookout for him.
But on the other hand, in the Smithsonian, James Buchanan Barnes, they do the whole narration. Yeah. Steve Rogers' best friend since high school. Like the world knows Barnes is with Steve back then. So I'm like, it's interesting. It's interesting.
Well, billions of people just came back, so maybe they're not all caught up with making sure where Bucky is. So
Well, I think it's the, like, to your point, it's, if we were really going to get into the weeds on this, like, if you go to that Cap Museum and you see Bucky Barnes, like, he's in the exhibit, like, we know that he's there. We know he was one of Cap's guys, and to Shannon's point, which I didn't think about, which is accurate, in Civil War, like, the Winter Soldier, James Buchanan, like, there is a search for him that is, worldwide, where people are calling in sightings thinking they saw the Winter Soldier.
In a stand with, he's like, well, that guy right there.
But I think that time? So,
I think he has a mask on. So I think that you could probably buy the fact that, I mean, look, I've been to a lot of museums. I'm not going to remember every picture I've seen on the wall at the museum. So I think as opposed to like, Sam Wilson, who is recognized everywhere he goes because he's a very prominent member of the Avengers. Yeah. Bucky Barnes is probably his face is a little bit less likely to be recognized on the streets.
Yep. And don't forget the symbolism, just to wrap this part up, the sequence up, the symbolism of Bucky when he's in that office with Amy Aquino. Right behind him is a forest, right? And that's in essence where he's lost in the forest of his own mind. There's a symbolism there to grab.
I wasn't sure. Like that seemed like a therapist thing. Like I was like, well, that's an interesting choice.
Yeah,
but I guess
it was very calming.
That's the thing.
I was relaxed.
I like that office. I'm not gonna lie. All right, let's move over to Sam now. Let's continue Sam's story. Sam's heading off to see his sister and his nephews. He finds them all right there by the water. You know, Sam lives in Louisiana. Sam's from Louisiana. In the Marvel comics, I think he's from Harlem, New York. But in this, he's in Louisiana. He's from Louisiana. Sees his sister there. You see his nephews call him Uncle Sam, which I think is a nice little double meaning there. And Sam's sister is being played by Adepero. I hope I'm saying this right. Adepero Aduye, who was in Ava DuVernay's When They See Us, Widows, and 12 Years a Slave. Great actress. Good to see her in this. After some small talk, they have a strong back and forth here over the family's business, over the boat, which bears the names of their actual two parents from the comics. They talk about the house. Sam calls her out for saying she took some loans out on the house, so he has to get involved because his name was on that as well. Sam offers some money to help her, says we can take out a loan, consolidate everything under one loan again. This is their real lives. This is what struck me as I was watching this scene. It's like Marvel is really dialing into this reality of post-blip life for everybody, superhero or not, for everybody. And we see this interaction between them kind of really hammering that home. Don't you think, Shannon?
Yeah, definitely, because this is the first time that we've really gotten to know who Sam Wilson is as a man. Yeah. Because, the only things from his past we really found out about were in Winter Soldier when he talks about his old wingman Riley. Yeah. That is the only time. The rest of the time, Anthony Mackie is playing Falcon, the Avenger, Falcon, Cap's friend.
Right.
So the first time I watched it, because we go back to the story a couple of times, I was like, wow, we're really getting into this boat thing in this superhero
this
show.
Just seems very important, this boat, yeah.
But then going back and watching it again, I was just like, oh my God, this is so important, because this is going to inform, it informs who he is, and it's going to inform what he does through the next 5 chapters of this series, and probably also through the rest of his MCU appearances. Like, I love the fact that we got to find out who this guy was. Like, he's got a family. Like, we found out in the Smithsonian that he's got nephews that, that have now grown. But getting to see him play sort of the local hero, the small town hero, where the one guy's like, hey, when are you gonna let me borrow the wings? Like, when you pay back my sister that $100 you borrowed from her.
That's cold, man.
It's cold, man. It's cold.
It's cold.
Well, what do you think, Kalinowski, about this? What's feeling a little more reality in their lives? Yeah.
We talked a little bit with McClung about this last night, so I'm going to tiptoe on this because I don't want to come off as insensitive. I feel like the trope of the struggling business has been played.
Okay.
All the time. It seems like it's a small shop that can't stay afloat. I think a stronger choice would have been, because like you'd said, if this is going to pay off with him with the mantle and we see how it affects with the business and getting the loan, to see her, like maybe she was a pro bono lawyer, or to see the cases she's dealing with. Like, I remember, did you guys see the movie? Was it Just Mercy?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I would have
Michael B. Jordan.
Yeah, I would have loved to have seen her in a role like that, like trying to get her law firm, and she can't do it. She's trying to support the community with all these cases of, maybe we can bring in the police problem, and she can't keep her business up because she has no money. She works pro bono, so she's got to go get a loan. That to me would have been a stronger choice than just my catfish business. It just seemed like I've seen that before. I wanted to involve her more with the community. And I just thought now, because you guys said is this will pay off for Sam with, I got to do something. Yeah. I'm at home. Yeah. I'm fighting aliens, but my home it's affecting. And Sam's as a Cap to me was always a man of the people, more so almost than Steve Rogers, because there's a scene in the most recent one where he goes and he's dealing with the border issues. Mm-hmm. And the government tells him, even Steve's like, don't go down there, don't do this. And he's like, I'm Cap now, I got to do this, and it's like, I just felt there was a different, because I feel like we've seen it before and done, the struggling business and can't get the loan. But if he was involved with maybe the police and defending people in the town, and it just, but I do like seeing that.
Yeah. But I think this is leading to that loan officer scene, which we'll talk about in just a second. But yeah, Vogel, what do you think about this scene?
I think the reason that they didn't necessarily go down that road that Kalinowski was talking about is they're making a pretty clear distinction of Sam being the guy who went off to go be the hero and help others. Right. And his sister Sarah is like, I just got to help my family. Like I'm just trying to struggle to get by to tomorrow. And like the way that she says, like, you don't know what the past 5 years were like. Like, you don't know, like, I'm keeping this, like, it's that thing that happens in regular families where somebody stays in the same hometown that they grew up in and like ends up taking care of mom and dad, and somebody else goes off to do, you know, whatever it is that they do. And I thought that was really weird, really kind of real. And then the other thing that really struck me as I was watching it, kind of to what Johnny was saying about like the real lifeness of Marvel, is that, you know, most of the superheroes that we have seen thus far, maybe with the possible exception of Peter Parker, but he jumped on that Tony Stark scholarship really quick, is they're all pretty taken care of. Like, Tony Stark is rich.
Yeah.
Like, Stephen Strange was a very well-off surgeon. He was doing just fine.
Yeah.
You know, they all were doing, even T'Challa was king. Like, you know, everyone was kind of like, my day job is doing just fine, which gives me the ability to go do what I'm doing. And that with this storyline for Sam, they're really doubling down on, no, you don't get paid to be an Avenger. Like, it is not how that works. And so not only to sort of deal with that with Sam, but then have him go back to his community and go back to his family and see that, like, they're struggling in a very real way. And to Johnny's point, like, in the world of the MCU, that struggle is, we are just coming off the blip, which we have never dealt with before. But as we all watch this, I think it's impossible to not want to watch it and not go, oh, you all had the blip. We've just had COVID. And a lot of people are in a very similar place. So I think it's to that point, I think that's why it was the choice they made, and why I thought it was good. But I totally hear what you're saying about the business trope. But I think in this case, particularly because we haven't seen it used, at least in the MCU as much, I liked it.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
And for those who don't know, Sarah Wilson, that is Sam Wilson's sister. She does exist in the comics. She was married to a reverend who was killed. I think that's married to who was killed, but she had a son who had issues with a local drug dealer. That was in the comics, but clearly she has two sons here. This is Louisiana, not New York. So there might be different things that are going to be explored here for sure as we go along. Because I don't think you cast an actress like that and not have some more weight to this role emotionally. But you say something, Mike? It's good.
No.
You good? Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next scene, and that is first date time. Bucky and Leia out on their dates, or Leah.
Worst date ever.
But there's so much here. I mean, Bucky shows up with flowers because that's what you did in the 40s.
Old school man. Old school
man.
Doing
There's nothing wrong with that. Some ladies like that. And they, you know, she puts them in. They sit down. They start talking and normal conversation, asking about his dating life. He talks about doing online dating. This really weird. That makes a nice joke about tiger photos, which I've heard from a number of women is a thing that you see on there. Yeah, I don't know. I don't.
Were they talking? Did he mean like you put the tiger face, their emoji into like a tiger?
No, there are dudes who take pictures of themselves with tigers.
Dudes with tigers.
Yes, dudes with tigers.
Vogel.
And I think women with tigers as well has become a thing. I don't know though. I don't know.
Vogel? I got my tiger photo. I don't know.
I know your apps. Are there tiger photos there?
If you've seen my pictures on the apps, you're doing your apps wrong.
I haven't seen your pictures. I've seen your apps. Like He-Man on a tiger with shirtless like this.
Well, first of all, if I had a tiger, I would probably take that photo, but I don't have it thus far.
Roy of dating sites with a tiger. Are you kidding me? Leather, like a furry collar.
Oh, furry. There you go. And he says, she asked him how old he is. He says he's 106, which we mentioned as a joke.
Yeah, because
she takes it as a joke.
Yeah. He's like, okay.
Then talks about his gloves, which I thought was really interesting.
Yeah.
He says he's masking poor circulation. She offers up a game. They play some Battleship. But I love when she walks away to get the game, the metronome of the cat. That's a great little moment.
McClung lost it. He lost it.
Of course he did. But we hear that Bucky has a sister. And that his parents have passed away. And then he says he has 4. So I don't know if he said he had 4 sisters or he was calling a number out for the Battleship game. But they discuss Yuri and his son, which, of course, causes Bucky to go off to see Yuri there. He knocks on the door. Yuri opens it. And there's a shrine to his son in the apartment. And in that moment, he still can't bring himself to admit what he did and walks off. What do we got here, Kalinowski? What's your feeling on this one, man?
Dude, like the flowers right away. That's old school guy.
Yeah,
Like it was great. And again, his awkwardness. I love the battleship kind of, symbolism of the game, and then kind of going back and forth.
Right.
But like, it's just, and again, it's just more of the man out of time, but then just leaving it hurt. Like, not even, hey, I got to go. Excuse me. He just, I think he mumbles, I got to go, and just walks off. And then it's just like, he goes right to the guy. Yeah. And you just know it's going to come out between the two of them. It'll be there. And it's that I don't want to say like the clock, the ticking clock, like, it's going to be there. It's in his mind. They will have a scene together, but you're just like, you can't imagine that situation. I can't. Yeah.
Absolutely. What struck you from this one, Vogel?
I mean, it's one of those classic Marvel things that when they go for we're going to do a scene and get the most humor out of it that we can, they really go for it. Yeah. I mean, I think, like, they know that this is one of our comedic moments. And so all of the man out of time beats, all of the funny stuff there, the cat, like all of it, like that we got to really see Bucky in a goofy, the awkward date, charming guy mode, which really just goes a long way towards making you really fall in love with Bucky.
But to your point there, do you also feel it's not the typical thing, because this man is a killer? Like every single thing that he touches in that room, he knows he can use as a weapon. The minute anyone comes into that room, he always would seem on edge. Like, I just feel like, and he plays it that way, where you're just like, he's not relaxed and like, okay, this is awkward meet cute in a movie. This is an assassin meet cute where
that's 100%. 100%. But I think what's good about it is that, as opposed to kind of what Shannon was saying about Sebastian Stan's really good at awkward acting. Yeah. And he's not doing like, I'm like the goofy nerd. Right. But he's also not coming in and being like, I'm a trained killer. I'm going to catch this sword. Like, he is someone who used to be a trained killer and still has all of those instincts and is struggling to just have a normal date. And it doesn't go well. Like, it's super awkward. And like, being able to play that awkwardness, to play those two sides and find the humor in that, I thought was really fun. I also think like the way that they sort of casually get in, like when she was like, have you done a lot of dating since half the fish in the sea blipped back? Yeah. Like the way that you're like, just the constant reminder that we're all living in this world is really, really good. And then, when he just makes that decision to get out of there and runs up, this is going to sound stupid because it's not anywhere near the level of what Bucky is dealing with, but it really is like that feeling of, he got out of there because, like, in that moment, he made the decision, I'm absolutely going to tell this person this thing. Yep. And then he got there, and you just watched, and you were like, oh, God, and you just knew he couldn't. And the only thing I could think about was, like, back when I was in the closet, and I would, like, be like, I'm going to go tell somebody, like someone who I hadn't told. I'm like, I'm going to tell them. And I think I called my best friend in high school 10 different times. I was like, I have to tell you something. And I would drive over to his house, and then we would get there. He's like, what do you have to tell me? I'm like, I think I'm going to move to L.A., Like, I would just like that moment of just like not being able to say a thing. So obviously not on the level of being an assassin for 90 years, but that emotional feeling that you were dealing with, like, it was just so real, like that I've got to get out because if I don't do this right this minute, I'm not going to do it. And then getting there and just being like, I did not pay you for lunch. And then walking off and you're like, oh man, that's brutal.
Shannon, you've had those moments. I mean, we've been on these dates where we're like, triggered, I'm out of here. What was your experience watching this sequence as well?
Well, yeah, in those days, I got suckered into staying the entire time, and when it was supposed to become a drink state, and feeding her and plying her with alcohol, and never seeing her again.
Ordering appetizers and an entree?
Okay, we'll talk about that some other time. I thought it was, I thought the whole sequence was really, really great, and again, Sebastian Stan's ability to play that awkwardness, and like at one point, it was like he was in a three camera sitcom, and he did sort of a take to the audience, like, yeah. But those little cat statues that wave at you, every store in Japan has one of those. Yeah. Okay. So when he finally reached out and made sure it stopped waving at him, that really, really got me tickled. Oh my God. But listening to him talking about Yori and everything, it was just so heartbreaking, because think about one of the times, or really the only time we've seen someone discovers that Bucky is responsible for the death of their loved one. That was Tony.
Yeah, Tony.
Civil War.
Right.
And this is someone that he has grown to really, really care about. And he wants to do the right thing and say, listen, here are the facts. Here is what happened to your son. I realize you don't want to talk to me anymore, but now you can have peace, because you know what happened. Yeah. And when he got there, and it was just so heartbreaking. You see the Buddhist shrine behind him with the candle lit, just ripped my heart out. And right when we saw Yuri from the beginning, I was like, oh my gosh, I hope we get to see this character again. And then by the end of it, I'm like, I'd be okay if we didn't, because it's going to be hard. It's going to be sad.
It's got to make amends. And his name was in the book. Because we cut to that last shot, and Yuri's name is in his book to make it circled to make amends. So he knows there's guilt going on.
You know what I thought was interesting about that is Zemo and the Senator were on one side, and Yuri was on the other side.
Wow. Like one side has like a smiley face above it, and the other one has like an angry face.
Angry emoji. All right, let's go to Switzerland. Remember Torres? He's back in the episode. He's heading to some meeting of these people with the red hand, the flag smashers, on some random street there in Switzerland. Someone starts handing out masks, and it looks very suspiciously like Enfys Nest from from Solo the Star Wars story. She is going to be playing Carly Morgenthau, who is possibly going to be running the Flag Smashers, because in the comics it's Carl Morgenthau. So this may be a bit of a swerve here in the show. We shall see. And then the two bags come flying out of this thing comes off on the phones. This alarm goes off, and then these two bags come flying out. Everybody starts milling around. The police run up, try to grab this large dude who's got these bags. He hands them off to two other people who are going in the opposite direction. Then he walks up to a police officer who's beating up one of these flag smasher people, and he launches that dude with a kick into the wall. So clearly he's on some kind of super soldier serum, we think. Torres pulls his gun, gets completely subdued by this dude, gets his butt kicked, and he is taken out. Talk to me about this, Shan. What'd you think?
Terrific action scene. Really, knowing that Torres is someone we're going to be following. Super, super fun. And then seeing that this guy does have some sort of super soldier-like abilities, it definitely makes you think of the power broker character. Okay, someone is giving this group abilities, and maybe the only way Torres is going to have his rematch with the masked fella is maybe being powered up as well.
Yeah, fair. Vogel, what stood out to you as you watched this?
Really great introduction to the Flag Smashers. I think the thing that struck me the most, great action scene, like super interesting, everything you guys said about the super soldierness of that guy. But the thing that struck me the most of it is we're used to in superhero shows, like when the bad guys show up and they've got their henchmen, you assume they got them from like 1-800 henchmen. Like, I don't know, like these were a bunch of people that they hired to like do shit. And this was very clearly like a meetup. Like, these were sort of normal people who had been sucked into a belief system.
Yeah.
And all chose to show up and were just handed masks and said, this is what you're doing. And so a bunch of people going on social media and getting pulled into a belief system it was an interesting choice. It was an interesting choice, but...
And the certain parts of the internet will go, no, that's not what it is.
Yeah, they will. But I think,
yep.
I mean,
but also to be fair, like to what Kalinowski said earlier, I don't think that this is some sort of like making fun of a group of people or trying to just do like a funny nod to something. Like the whole manifesto of the Flag Smashers, which is things were better during the blip and we don't want to go back into that world, like maybe is extreme, but definitely probably has some merit on some level. Yeah. And the fact that there's a kernel of truth that then gets pushed into a radicalized stance on things, I think it's interesting. And like we've been saying about Sam being a black hero, like we're about to talk about in this bank scene, like we're talking about with the Flag Smashers. Every choice that they are making in this first episode seems to be going down a road that they're going to get into some shit. And I really actually hope they do. I know there will be the corners of the internet that are like, why does everything have to be political or whatever? But they are really gearing up for this to be really political on multiple levels. And I hope they deliver on that.
Yeah, like I said. Yep.
Sorry. I came up with a joke. If you rewind 2 minutes, you'll see the moment that it happened.
Okay.
Oh God, here we go.
Well, no. Instead of a flash mob, this would be a smash mob.
Oh boy, yikes!
It would have been so much better if you didn't announce the joke.
I had to.
Now I want to put the cat thing with its arm going on in his face the whole time. Yeah, exactly. I mean, Kalinowski, anything more to add to this, or should we move on? Okay,
well, I think just because in the trailer they but we saw Flag Smasher Erin Kellyman's character running real fast. I'm like, okay, that's Super Soldier right there. So, and again, I don't want to start theories because maybe this is how they start. Isaiah Bradley, maybe one of the recipients of having that super soldier serum in his body, because they don't have many samples of that anywhere. That's why they couldn't really replicate it. We don't know if US Agent has it. We haven't seen any of that. Is that the reason he's in it? Because they're the power broker, whoever's using his blood to manufacture and give these kids this ability. That's fascinating to see where this could potentially go.
That's a good point. That's for sure. And certainly I think the swerve is happening here. She is going, you don't cast Erin Kellyman, not make her the lead of this crew.
Nope.
And she certainly held her own in Solo, a Star Wars story.
Yeah.
All right, let's go back to Sam and his sister's family. We get the loan officer scene. This will forever be known as the loan officer scene in the MCU. We're at this bank here. This loan officer thinks that he's a running back from USC, further proving the idea that some people think all black people look the same, which I think was really funny. And then he eventually stumbles on the fact that he is a Falcon, but Sam doesn't discourage him. He doesn't get offended. He actually kind of likes the attention that he's getting. His sister, not so much, giving that polite kind of pursed smile. But the guy takes a selfie with Falcon. He asks him how Falcon makes his money, makes some mention about Stark paying you guys when you were around. But Falcon admits that Stark didn't pay us. And in fact, that alludes to a little interaction between Captain America and Stark earlier in one of the MCU films. But Sam says we usually rely on the goodwill of others to help us out. And they've always been willing to do the right thing. And he says, like now in this situation, to help us. And the loan officer says, I can't help you. You have no income over the last 5 years. And he's like, I was blipped, man. How could I possibly have any income? And her income is all over the place. Then after he turns them down, he asks for a selfie. Lord Almighty. And
balls.
But that's what some people do. But he explains to them the blip coming back. The people, they were handing out money like crazy when it was half the population gone. But now that everyone's back, all these people are trying to get back on their feet. What kind of pressure that must put on a financial institution, and also throw in the fact that this is, it's a black-owned business trying to get money from the bank. That was a very real scene. Michael, what stood out from you? Vogel, what stood out for you as you were watching the scene, man?
Much like my feelings about Hayward in WandaVision, this loan officer was a bad guy.
I will concede that 1,000.
Everything you just said, it really hit so many important points. Watching Sam not only was okay with the fact that the guy recognized him, he was counting on that.
Yes,
he thought he was going to go into the bank, and because he is Sam Wilson, Falcon Avenger, that was going to make a difference. And there really is a lot of commentary on there about it doesn't matter where you are. That there is that certain people in our country are treated differently. And so the fact that even despite that, the way that the banks are tightening post blip, just the idea that they would use. You don't have any income for the past 5 years because you didn't exist. But that the fact that banks would use that as a loophole to be like, sorry, we can't do your loan. You're like, oh, I wish that didn't feel realistic, but it feels so realistic. And yeah, when he says, you know, banks have had to tighten, and Sarah, his sister, says, yeah, it's funny how they always seem to tighten around us. And he's like, whoa, hey now, don't make it about race. Like, he's like, it's very like it was so interesting. And even just like the weirdness of like him being like, oh, did Stark pay you? I mean, my condolences, you know, he's dead. But it was such like, he was awkward and smarmy and gross and kind of entitled and like didn't understand that like how shitty he was being almost. Like, it was just like, it was such an icky scene that said so much. And again, what I think is great is the way that they're weaving this idea that superheroes don't get paid, which is something everybody kind of wonders, like would they, like, you know, that it's like the nature of being a superhero not being in a job, and then weaving the idea of the blip and this super weird sci-fi concept into a very real world problem, which is a black family trying to get a loan on a business and not being able to do it. Like, the way that they're able to seamlessly mix all of those things and make it feel legit and make it effective, I think that's when Marvel is at their best. And this scene probably was like my favorite scene in the episode for that reason.
Well, this is a 1-2 punch scene, and we'll get to the 2 punch in just a few seconds here. But certainly that scene does carry a little bit of weight and resin, because, you know, if Steve Rogers had walked in and asked for a loan, they'd have opened the goddamn vault.
Yeah, you're right.
What struck you here, Kalinowski, as you're watching this scene?
You know, I think, like I talked about before with the when the first scene with the family and the business, and I felt we'd seen it before. We've seen this scene before too, but it was handled differently. Yeah, like I'm instantly reminded of Joel McHale with Spider-Man 2. The scene in the bank, can't get the loan, she wants the toaster. Right, but this scene flipped it on us with the whole wanted to be the fan, and he wasn't overtly a jerk to them, but he doesn't realize what he was doing. And Sam kind of wanted to go in like, all right, I got some star cred. People recognize me in Tunisia. All right, we're going to see what this is going to get me. Oh, it doesn't get me jack shit. Wow, this sucks. I saved the world. So it also what I would normally think of this scene where, you know, the kind of nebbishy bank loan guy with the glasses, but it flipped it on it. So it kept me invested in it. Interested, like, oh wow, this is really not taking the turn. And with the sister sitting there, not even into this at all. She knew this was how it was going to go. She didn't want to be there. She's like, I knew you weren't going to work. I knew he was going to say the same things he did. Let's get out of here. We're wasting our time. Yeah, and she doesn't like the fact that he gave her hope again when she had been doing this for a number of years. And they go out and have that fight by the truck. Well, not a fight, but different of opinions. At the truck.
But also the fact, really, in the bank. Well, also really quick in the bank. I mean, they really make it clear. Like in addition to thinking he was gonna trade in on his Avengers-ness, he's like, I've got government contracts. I know that we can get this one loan. Like, they've done their homework. Like, in any situation, the Captain America example is great. Yes, if Steve Rogers had walked in and said, hey, the blip was rough, I did help save the universe, I'm really trying to get my business off the ground, like, you just know in your gut that would go differently. Like, it's just infuriating.
Here's the code to the vault. Take what you need. Take what you need. What do you think, Shannon?
Yeah, a great scene, and I thought it demonstrated something that can be applied in real life, which is selfie etiquette. You know, when you think of Thor Ragnarok, when those two girls in New York go up to Thor and say, Thor, can we take a selfie? Of course you can. They take the selfie. They apologize for what happened with Jane. Bank loan guy, as soon as he finds out he's Falcon, he doesn't ask. He immediately puts his camera up, and Sam does the thing. Sam's just kind of like, hey, you know, he puts on the show that he's supposed to put on because he's a public figure. But when you think about this, is 6 months after the blip. Think about the response that like our government had when the country shut down a year ago. Like there were a lot of kinks in the system, but ultimately like that the 600 extra for unemployment. After a little bit, they kind of get tired of helping people. You know, I mean, you look at what followed that. Like there was nothing extra for people for a long time. And so the idea that 6 months in, they would probably have some stuff figured out. But if there's going to be an organization that isn't going to help you, it's going to be a bank.
Yeah. It's funny how 100 people who make a guaranteed salary have an issue helping other people who've been, through no fault of their own, destroyed by the incompetence of the top chief and his cronies when they're putting their implementation and policies for the COVID-19 situation. But I digress. Anyway, let's go to our last scene here. Sam is back on the boat. trying to get the boat work, sees these pictures of his sister with their family, and he connects up with Torres, who is a little worse for wear. He sees Torres's video of a guy looking like he's got the super serum. Falcon thinks he might be, and then kind of stops himself. Torres wants more information, doesn't let him know. And then just as we're getting this conversation coming to an end, Sam's sister walks into the room, says there's a news report on TV, and she looks worried for him. And the same politician who shook Sam's hand and said, "Thank you for giving up the shield and not being Captain America," is the same asshole behind the lectern saying that they've got a new hero. Thanks to the Department of Justice and the Commander-in-Chief, the president has a new hero, a new Captain America, and out comes dorky Wyatt Russell holding the shield. And there is no way you can ignore the racist overtones in this scene as a 1-2 punch from the bank loan officer. Kalinowski, hear you reacting. Please take it away.
Just to know, first of all, Wyatt Russell was cast, and I didn't know who he was before this. And then just by chance, I watched Overlook. Or is it Overlook, right? Overlord. And he is great in it.
Yeah.
Just great. His character is great. He's kind of the hero. But also, someone on Twitter said it most. They posted a picture of him smiling. He's like, "Has there ever been a more punchable face?" And he just has this smirk in the costume, and the way the helmet's kind of sitting low on his face. And you're just like, "You don't deserve that suit. How dare you, sir?" Yeah. And to know what John Walker is, and to know, like we said earlier, like with John, mentioned how does Disney have the balls to push this where it can go? Because half the country sees themselves as Captain America. Yeah. And they see themselves as Steve Rogers, and they're not. They're John Walker. And if they go in that way, and I hope they do, because we haven't seen him in the trailers. I forgot who was talking. It might have been you, McClung. We were talking why are they not showing him in this trailer? We're not seeing anything him, and they've only shot him behind waving. And I thought, to most people, not us, the majority, and they hear Captain America, they say, "Oh, Chris Evans is going to be in this. That's Captain America." Yeah, and it's the flip when he comes down those steps. To a lot of people that don't follow this regularly and they know the casting, they go, "Yeah, Captain America's back somehow." And you see, you're like, "Who the hell is this clown?" To know the potential what this could be. I really hope they go for it. I really do.
Yeah, me too. It's an interesting because we in the comics, John Walker. The introduction, John Walker is the next Captain America. He's also U.S. agent. He's also Super Patriot, and he becomes more and more violent. He's connected to Power Broker. He is the ugly underbelly of American global policy, American domestic policy, and because he has that's a symbol on his uniform. It's going to be an interesting thing. And remember, they shot this and created this while a certain somebody was still president. So there may be some shots they're taking here as we explore this and exposing some of the underbelly of our global policy, some of the elections we've been involved in, stuff we've done internationally that's kind of unsavory for us as a country to look at. Shannon, I go to you next. What do you think about this scene, brother?
Well, I want to go back 1 second to the fight between Sarah and Sam, because she says, you made your choice to go off and fight armies and fight aliens, and thank you. She's like, but I was left here to deal with everything. So if you want to come back now and right your wrongs, and that's what's making me think so this entire series is going to be about making amends for people.
Both sides. Right, good point. Yeah.
Yep. And then watching Wyatt Russell walk down those steps, as soon as they showed the guy behind the lectern, I was just like, mother effers, are you kidding? And that's why I think that maybe this was not entirely, maybe not Sam's idea to give that shield, because that look on his face is, you told me one thing, you did another.
He clenched his fist. Yeah.
That's what I got from it. I got from it. But Mike, I've never thought it would be possible to despise someone from behind. As he walked down the steps and he held the shield up and he waved, and you can see he's got a sidearm, which Chris Evans used in the first one, but he didn't use the rest of them. He didn't have a gun. I'm just like, you "You imposter!" And then you see that smug face, that Kurt Russell face, because that's Wyatt Russell's his kid.
Yeah.
You see him give a wink to the camera, and I was infuriated.
which I think you're supposed to feel. Vogel, please.
Well, the internet clearly hates him already, based on. There's been a whole lot of a picture of Chris Evans saying what you ordered on Amazon, and then a picture of John Walker as when it arrives. So the internet has made their opinions known.
But that plays into it so well.
Yeah, of course.
It just plays into it.
Yeah.
To Shannon's point about the fight between Sam and Sarah, another thing that was in that scene really quickly is this reference to their daddy being a giant. She's like, Daddy was a giant in this community. And I do wonder, to Shannon's point, because then when you have that scene, that really quick scene before Torres calls with Falcon, with Sam on the boat, and he sees the pictures of his family and he's looking at it, I do think that we're going to have a little bit more in the story of like who Sam and Sarah's parents were, who their dad was, what he meant to the community, and how that maybe ties into some amends that Sam is going to make down the road. So I do think that is true. As far as Sam's reaction, again, I could be wrong, so I don't feel super strong about this. Shannon might be right, but the way that I took it was not that someone had told him one thing, but that the reason he gave that shield back is because nobody can be Steve Rogers. Like, he didn't go, oh, well, you told me you were going to do this. Again, my understand, the way that it read to me was, I gave this to go into the museum because Steve Rogers is the symbol, and this shield is a symbol of Steve Rogers, and nobody can ever wield it. So not me, even though Steve Rogers told me I could, and not anybody else. And that they were like, oh, thank you for giving it to us. We'll put it in a place of honor. So I do think maybe once he made the decision, what he understood was this is where it's going to be, and that clearly is not where it is. And then, holy shit, like, knowing what I know about U.S. Agent, like, I really think it is interesting. You know, Steve Rogers, when he was Captain America, was a government-sanctioned superhero. The government made him, and he was the government's guy. But that was a different era, and it meant a little bit something different. And what's interesting about about Steve Rogers' Captain America is from Captain America 2 into Civil War on, this was a guy that was literally made to be the ultimate American soldier, the ultimate patriot, but at every single one of these movies did what he believed was the right thing to do, not what the government was telling him was the right thing to do. Right. And that's what makes him Captain America. Yeah. And so now you have this guy who's stepping into these shoes, but probably is not going to have the strength of will to be the Steve Rogers. And so you're setting up a really interesting dynamic to see this guy who, again, as we were talking about, as Kalinowski said, which I thought was a really good point, which is Falcon is the one side of Steve Rogers, the soldier, doing what's right within the military, and then you've got Bucky, who's the man out of time, and now you have John Walker, the new Captain America, who is I'm the government super soldier part of the equation. But it's going to be interesting when these all three collide.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I love the way it's introduced. This is the way you're supposed to introduce. You're not supposed to like this guy. The way he's being introduced by this smarmy politician who clearly had an agenda here to have a white Captain America was brilliant. And as Kalinowski alluded to, if you know the history of John Walker in the comics, he doesn't come out the gate being a great Captain America. He gets his butt kicked. Falcon has to save him a few times. And the way Wyatt Russell looked in the costume, he looks like he's not strong at all. So, but some of the stuff we've seen in the trailers from behind when he's running up, he looks massive. So there may be a power broker situation here. He may be desperate to keep this job and finds out about power broker, wants to use this serum, and becomes a guy who's working behind the scenes nefariously to betray the government in order for him to be to achieve his position.
Not to be just like he's coming in because you know what he's going to be and he serves his purpose. These actors are usually hired for 7-8 films or whatever they do, but he is such a good story because when Cap does return with the mantle, when John Walker took over, it's a redemption story for him as well because he does kind of redeem himself and realizing his place and he wasn't a good Cap and his journey. So you get an actor like Wyatt Russell, who is a great actor. Yeah, like that's gold. We talked about Bucky 10 years ago. That's gold 10 years from now. So hopefully he sticks around.
There's a future, as Michael just said, when all three of them collide. There's a future where by the end of this series, all three
Sure.
are on the same side going up against the Flag Smashers.
again,
that's a possibility too.
He is Captain America. He's not U.S. agent. You know,
Right,
he is Captain
right.
America right now, which is the comics. He didn't become U.S. agent till he took the red and black and white suit.
Right.
So there is that arc. Hopefully, we'll see more of.
That's a badass suit. I loved that suit.
Yeah, it's a great outfit.
And just a quick thing with Sam Wilson's parents, Sam and Sarah's parents. That's Paul Wilson and Darlene Wilson. Paul Wilson was the Reverend. That was my mistake. I confused. Sarah Wilson's husband dies. We don't know how, or I don't know how, but Paul Wilson is the father. He is a Reverend. He gets murdered trying to break up a fight between two rival gangs in New York. And then 2 or 3 years later, their mother is also gunned down, protecting their children from an attack. So there is stuff to explore here. I know it's Louisiana, not New York, so I don't know how they're going to do this. The giant reference is fascinating. And I don't know if there's a Carl Lumley connection by chance. I just don't know. But it'll be something to explore for sure, and we'll see. Because you don't just say someone is a giant and not like explore that, Vogel. So that was a great point you brought up. All right, let's get into the end credits here. We've got to wrap up soon. I know we're going really long, real quick. All right, so in the end credits, we get the shots of the Capitol, DC stuff. We do get the Flag Smasher stuff, an angry monkey symbol, which I don't remember what that reference is. Maybe you guys can. There's an eye on the money Illuminati symbol, the CRC symbol. We get Carl Lumley there as well as one of these shots. Power broker watching is what it says there, with a blue vial of something, possibly the super soldier serum or their version of it. Madripoor is highlighted as well in those end credits. John Walker Cap is back. Emily Van Camp is seen, and the Baron Zemo is seen, and the words that trigger Bucky becoming the Winter Soldier again. Those are there as well. So what struck out? I'll go to our resident Easter eggs guy. Shannon, what did you feel as you were watching these end credits, man?
I mean, you really have to go through with the trigger finger on the pause button, because a lot of them pop up and then fade away. I mean, of the 2 times that I watched the show, I probably watched the credits 4 or 5 to get all that stuff. Sure, I think you got everything, but the thing that I thought was the most interesting was the shot of Carl Lumley, and above it had like subject and it had the number, so it's like, okay, clearly we're getting into this that the government experimented on this guy. What stood out you there, Vogel?
Madripoor. I mean, we knew it already, so it's not like a big surprise. But as we talk about the power broker, as we talk about like Madripoor in the comics, is, you know, it's a hive of scum and villainy.
It's a den of shit.
Yeah, like
I'm
it is
words there. It's a den of shit.
It's it's a criminal's paradise. It's a criminal's paradise. And so as we are unraveling whatever it is that is going to be going on in this new world order, whether this is, as you're saying, like people giving out some kind of super soldier serum, the power broker, whatever it is, things leading to Madripoor to be like, where is the source of where is this coming from? Definitely just seems like that makes the most sense. Right. So I think it's going to be really interesting. Like to your point, you got a new Captain America who we're going to assume has some super soldier kind of abilities. We know that we have an original black Captain America who was one of the early experiments where the super soldier serum worked. And now we've got these Flag Smashers that seem to be having very similar super soldier abilities. And as far as we know, there's not that much super soldier serum going around. So where is it? Where is it coming from? Where is it being distributed from? So like that's where the Madripoor of it all. I'm like, okay, because we knew, like we saw the trailers, we saw them in this place. Everybody was like, that we think that's Madripoor. But now seeing the first episode and contextualizing it, it feels like that's how we're going to loop it into things.
Yeah. Also, there anything else Kalinowski stood out to you?
No,
from the
you
end
guys.
credits?
Just while in the end credits, I didn't realize it at the time, but I'm so glad that Henry Jackman is back doing the score because he did Winter Soldier and Civil War.
He did Civil War, yeah.
So it just has such a good connectivity to it for me.
I agree with that 1,000%. And Madripoor also kind of connects to the X-Men comics as well. So is this a next baby step forward towards this mutant situation possibly, or the
We're
X-Men?
We're gonna see Hugh Jackman pop up
after
Patch. Watch. No.
After
Hugh Jackman is Mephisto. There it is. So I've said it.
I was gonna say after 9 weeks. After 9 weeks of speculation on mutants coming out of Westview, you're going to have to work way harder than showing me Madripoor to get me on the mutant train.
I think that's absolutely fair. All right, let's wrap up. This is our spoiler review. Hope you've enjoyed our spoiler review, episode 1 of Falcon and Winter Soldier, the episode titled New World Order. So much to come. We didn't see Baron Zemo, Daniel Bruhl. We didn't see Emily Van Camp yet.
Nope.
Nice surprise having Don Cheadle in here as Rhodes. I didn't even know he was going to be. It was great. So there's been a lot of cameos teased. So this may expand out to include some more people. And they've got to launch these other series. So we shall see how it all connects for sure. But enough to get us excited to see what's coming down the road. And maybe there'll be a little more action for Mike Kalinowski to enjoy as well. But it's coming. It's coming. So, all right. Well, let's wrap it up here. Shannon, what do we have to tell them?
Yeah, if you'd like to follow us on social media, on Twitter, it's @geek_buddies, on Instagram, @the_geek_buddies. If you'd like to follow me on social media, on Twitter, it's @Shannon_McClung, on Instagram, @Shannon_the_Geek_buddy. If you would like to follow Mr. Vogel, it is @MK2, and if you would like to follow Mr. Rocha, it is @TheRochaSays.
Vogel?
We really enjoy all you guys coming on this ride with us. If you came with us on the WandaVision ride, you know how fun and exciting it can be. So we are at the beginning of another round, and we're glad you're here. And we want more people here as long as you are not a shitty bank loan officer. So if you are not one, here is what you can do. You can hit the like button below. You can subscribe to Johnny's Outlaw page. Definitely leave us some comments. We definitely check them out. Get back to you guys. We want to hear, what did you guys think? What did you guys like about the episode? What did you not like about the episode? What do you think is going to happen next? And then the best thing that you can do for us, and the thing that you all are doing so well, and we appreciate it, and please keep doing it, is retweet this video, post it on your Facebook page, send it to your friends. If someone says, I really want to watch Falcon and Winter Soldier, but I don't know what the fuck is going on in the Marvel Universe, we are here for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And a big thank you to Mike Kalinowski for joining us.
Guys,
on
thank
the
you.
journey. Mike, where can they find you and everything that's going on, brother?
At Mike Kalinowski, guys. Every week, Wednesdays at 9 p.m. on the SDN network. If you know John, you know me, you know what SDN is. We, myself and Christian Harloff, do Sith Council, a Star Wars show, diving into all stuff Star Wars.
Sorry, 9 a.m., not 9
I know,
p.m.
just at 9 p.m. Yeah, 9 a.m. Bright and early for me.
Yeah,
bright and early for me, guys. It's early. I get up for that.
Yep.
But yeah, all lately I've got DC stuff's going on. Review. I'm joining you guys. We announced it. Do we know?
Yeah, we do. Announced it
Sunday. Sunday, 7 p.m. We doing? Sunday,
Yep,
7 p.m. Justice League reviews. Zack Snyder's Justice League. Boy, is it going to be a barn burner.
I'm going to start drinking right now.
From what I know of what we've been texting each other, it's going to be insane. It's a 4-hour film. It's going to be an 8-hour review.
No.
We're going into the twilight hours. If I can jump through the screen and choke Mike, I probably will during it.
It's going to be something. It's going to be, this was us on our best.
The only thing that
Sunday's going to be crazy.
Sours me about this right now is we weren't all in the same room to do this all together. That's the only thing that sours me on this. But we're gonna it's gonna be awesome. It's gonna be like you're joining us in a car ride down to Comic-Con.
Yep,
that's right.
You boys, thank you so much for having me on for the next 5 weeks with you guys. This is going to be wonderful.
Absolutely agreed, man. We couldn't think of a better person. So thank you,
Mike,
wonderful for finding the time. We love you. All right, thanks everybody so much. Please listen to what Mike and Shannon said. Do all those things, and then come back and see us next week for two things. Next week for two things. One, our regular show, which we just dropped a couple of days ago. If you want to catch up and watch that. And our next review, episode 2 of Falcon and Winter Soldier. We'll be dropping these for the next 6 weeks or 5 weeks after this one. All right, take care of yourselves. Be well, and we'll talk to you next time on another brand new episode of The
Geek
Buddies.
Hey!